What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of Chargers Weekly, June 2nd, a June edition, second week of OTAs underway. And Money, I've heard other people talk about this. It's all 32 teams are loving what's going on in their building right now, right? Everybody's happy. Everybody's going to have a good year. So I think in an effort to get past just the cliche stuff, we can talk about what's really going on at Chargers camp. And, I think the big thing, when Joey Bosa shows up to OTAs and there's a bunch of stars and big names there, I think it's a good sign that your culture is headed in the right direction. And we got to see Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack on the field together for the first time yesterday.
Yeah, you don't want to put too much into it. At the same time, it's better than the alternative, right? And I think, if you really boil it down, is having, Joey and Khalil and Justin at voluntary OTAs in early June, late May going to win you a Super Bowl? No. But is it going to prevent you from winning a Super Bowl? No. I'd rather have him here. I'd rather have Justin Herbert out there, throwing passes while Asante Samuel Jr. is mic'd up and he's talking about how hard he's throwing, and that's why he didn't pick it off and it was a pass breakup instead, than have him, on TNT playing golf against Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen. I think you hit it on the head when you said culture. I think Joey never comes to this OTA. Joey always shows up in exceptional shape. We know he's got his guys in Florida that he likes working out with, and they bust their tails. And there's never an issue there. But the fact that he decided to roll out to California and kind of hang out with his teammates, you saw it on all the great social media posts that Jason and Megan and the team puts up there. Derwin oh snap, Joey's here. I think there is something to be taken away from that, that here's a team. Every team believes they're going to win a Super Bowl every year. If they didn't, why would they? Well, they take the field because they get paid a lot of money. But, I think it signals that, this team believes this is a special roster. The roster, I should say, the players believe this is a special roster that is going to try to do everything they can to maximize the talent that has been assembled this particular year, because they feel like that they got a real legit shot. And I think that speaks to, I'll get out there, I'll put on some shorts and a helmet and walk around a little bit and see if it helps the cause.
Yeah. I'm not concerned with what's happening on the grass right now. We know Justin Herbert's an elite quarterback. We know what Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack are capable of. You're seeing just even around the AFC West, how good Russell Wilson looks in practice, and the Chiefs defense, and, Josh McDaniels and his new offense in Las Vegas. That's all fine and good. Wait till they get the pads on. I think what you want to glean out of this is just how the team's coming together. And when you hear Keenan Allen talk about the culture, and Keenan is such a big part of it. Keenan said Mike doesn't have to be here. Derwin doesn't have to be here. Joey doesn't have to be here. Khalil doesn't have to be here. Everybody's here because they sense that something big is going to happen this upcoming season. And I think it started last year with the foundation that Staley kind of laid. 9-8. It's debatable if that was a successful season or not. But this year, you show up a lot of positions, and I think it's refreshing when your veterans are saying, we want to be here right now, because that's not the case in all 32 camps. There may be hope and optimism, but your league guys aren't necessarily there and all in the way that I think some of these guys are right now.
Well, I think the way last year ended for so many teams leads to that feeling of, man, we left it on the table. It was 9-8 a successful season. Look, it's better than 7-9, but I don't think it was successful. Not the way it closed. Not losing 3 or 4 to close the season, and then watching what I thought was a pretty unimpressive Super Bowl, where I've got to believe the Chargers are sitting at home. The Bills especially are sitting at home, and the Chiefs going, what the hell, man? Boy, did we just pee that one away, and in the, the Bucs as well. It didn't feel like those were the two best teams on the field competing for the Lombardi. And look, that's not how it always works out. You got to have some breaks go your way. You have to execute when it's time to execute and make plays. The Chiefs had a miserable second half against the Bengals. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Rams who won the Super Bowl or the Bengals who represented the AFC. I'm just saying, I think seeing those two teams out there perform the way they did on the biggest stage has led to a lot of guys and a lot of teams saying, man, I wish that could have been us on the other, on that sideline, because, you feel like just the way it played out, the Lombardi was there for the taking. And it's just a reminder of how slim the margins are, that a hiccup against the fight, or I should say, we talked about this with Popper last week, that secondary injuries at inopportune times against beatable teams, the Patriots, the Minnesota Vikings, the COVID game against the Texans, just sort of the slow, sloppy start against the Raiders, after such a huge rally at the end of week 18, like all of those things add up, I think to presenting a case to this roster of, let's make sure that there's no stone left unturned. Let's make sure there is nothing left on the table that we can point to say, man, if only, this, or if only that, then this could have been us. And I think that probably speaks to the reason why you have such a great turnout and really a lot of enthusiasm at OTAs. And that's the other thing, again, if you don't follow, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you follow the Chargers social media, but man, there's just so much cool content coming out of there about how, just jazzed the players are to be out there and to be with one another. The old Bolt fam is kind of just a phrase you hear repeatedly from any of these guys when they're mic'd up, when they're caught by whomever happens to be mic'd up. It's, Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco and company have really created what I think is a pretty darn impressive culture that these players certainly seem to be leaning into.
Starts with the quarterback, and I want to get into some of the things that Joe Lombardi said on Wednesday. But I was thinking about this, Bunny, like which quarterback in the AFC West has the most to prove, right? You could look at Denver and say, oh, Russell Wilson or Derek Carr with a new coach and trying to prove himself and get that big deal and show that he's the guy in Vegas. You could think Mahomes for how the AFC Championship ended, but I think it's Justin, man. I think Justin may be the most talented quarterback in the division, but he's got the most to prove. I mean, Russell has a ring. Mahomes has a ring. Carr has led his team to the playoffs twice. Justin needs to prove that he can win and get into the postseason. We know he could put up the numbers, but you look around the AFC West and how competitive it's gotten. I think when you have a talented young quarterback who also feels like he has maybe the most to prove in the division, that could be a recipe for success. And we've talked about, the fact that this is his second year in the same offense. Joe Lombardi talked about how this year has been like offense 202 as opposed to last year where it's football 101, just learning the terminology. This offense may take another leap this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think, as you kind of did the AFC West roll call, you look, they all have something, not something small to prove, but something big to prove. You look, Justin Herbert, fair or not, has been coronated. There has been a coronation. This is the best quarterback in football. And that's not me saying it. That's a lot of people out there that are like, if you tell me I get to pick one of these 32, this is my guy. There've been a lot of national talking heads, football writers that have tabbed Herbert as the guy. And it's understandable, when you put together the physical stature, the athleticism, the numbers, the fact that he's 24 and he's only played 2 seasons, and what he's been able to accomplish. Yeah, I get it. So he's got to prove those people right. He's got to prove that, saying the name Justin Herbert instead of Tom Brady or Russell Wilson or Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, it's not pressure he brought upon himself, but it's pressure that's been put upon him. Make the postseason, win a playoff game. I mean, we live in Southern California, and it's been the knock on Mike Trout. Now look, baseball's a supremely individual game, and Mike Trout can't pitch, and Mike Trout can't climb into the bullpen, and Mike Trout can't knock himself in when he's standing on second base. So it's not quite fair, but Trouty's been cited as the best player in baseball for 5-7 years now, and the guy's never won a playoff game. So you can still have those conversations and say, look, the defense let him down or whatever, pick your, it's not like it's all on Herbert. So he's got that pressure, right? Well, Patrick Mahomes now has an offense that no longer possesses the most lethal weapon in football outside of the quarterback position. Tyreek Hill is a nightmare, a complete game-changing nightmare for defenses. So he is not going to see what he used to see. not so the pressure's on him to prove, hey, this is not me executing because the field is so much more wide open because of how terrified teams are of Tyreek Hill getting behind them. So maybe I have a little bit more room to operate. So I think that pressure is on him. Derek Carr I think he has done a masterful job of creating this image of ride or die Raiders. I'm your guy, because look, you can't deny that the Raiders have looked.
He said he wasn't going to play anywhere else.
And that's been very smart. We know Raiders Nation always feels like it's us against everyone. Loyalty. The league's got it out for us. The refs got it out for us. Nobody wants, Al Davis created this culture that led to to the league, wanting us to fail in perpetuity. So like Carr has really leaned into that. But he really hasn't produced, so you mentioned he's made the playoffs twice. The one year he was having a hell of a year. Unfortunately, he got hurt right before that playoff contest against the Texans. Last year, I thought he played really well, and I think he's been getting better. So I think it's time for him. You're making $40 million a year, and this is a team that repeatedly has been sniffing around and just was not ready to pull the trigger on an Aaron Rodgers or a Matthew Stafford, or reportedly they were, and the deals just weren't enough. They didn't offer enough for Russell Wilson or whatever it may be. Russell Wilson's coming for his job. He mentioned the Raiders as one of the teams he wanted to be traded to. So I think Carr's got a lot to prove on that front. Obviously, Russell, had a miserable season last year. You heard about how embattled he was, in the locker room, that it was a divided locker room, that the defense felt like Russ was trying to take over the team when it was a defensive-led team, and that he got way too much credit for their success instead of, what that side of the ball was capable of doing, along with a strong running game. And Russ was supposed to essentially kind of be the grout in between all that tile. And now he's got to put this team on his back, and think about the assets they gave up, 2 1s, 2 2s, a 3, all of those picks and really good players like Noah Fant. And so, every quarterback, I think, is, whichever one of and one of these quarterbacks, maybe 2, maybe 3, are going to stumble out of the gate. It's just the way the NFL is. And it'll be interesting to see what the narrative is around them, and how much of it is placed upon their shoulders. So look, quarterbacks get too much credit. Quarterbacks receive too much blame, same as head coaches. So if it goes great, way to go. You're the best. Let's rank the AFC West quarterbacks. If it goes horribly, you're going to have those screaming and yelling faces on your TV calling out, the guy that's taking snaps.
You mentioned quarterbacks who may stumble out of the gate. It's a great segue into some of what Joe Lombardi said yesterday. I'm just going to read a few lines here and we could talk about it. He said, Justin's bandwidth is a lot wider for everything, so we can focus on some football 202 type of stuff rather than just getting in and out of the huddle. So it's real nice. And then he talked about that increased bandwidth. First and foremost, it's just familiarity with all the play calls. Last year at this time, it was just hearing the play, repeating it in the huddle, and understanding what the play is. That was a lot of calories burnt last year. This year, he has that part down. He can focus on what the defense is doing a little bit more, get his timing down with the receivers and all of that. It's everything. And he also talked about how, maybe there were some plays that he called and he's like, oh, I did a bad job of calling that play because maybe he just didn't have enough time on task with that. Now he does. So when you talk about stumbling out of the gate, hopefully Justin's not one of those guys who does stumble out of the gate. He has year 2 in this offense, and they can kind of hit the ground running. That was kind of the theme of yesterday to me, Money, was that these guys can focus a lot more on building on what they did last year as opposed to just learning everything for the first time. And there's a big difference. There's a reason why first-year head coaches get an extra week or so in the offseason to kind of get acclimated to everything. I think that's a good thing for the Chargers.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I think beyond Justin, to me, it has not been focused on enough that also affects the receivers, that are also learning the playbook, that are also learning their routes. Where am I supposed to be, especially in a lot of these option routes when it's a new offense? Like, I was happy to hear it from Keenan yesterday. It was Coach Lombardi and Keenan and Mike Williams that were made available yesterday. And Keenan pointed out drops. Keenan had a rough year last year. I don't think he would hesitate to acknowledge that. He had a solid year, but man, I don't want to put it on him, but he was up there. He was at the top of the league in drops, and it was uncharacteristic. And man, he had some big ones. I think about that Raider game in week 18. where he had a big one that would have gone for a first down. I think about that Patriots game. He might have taken that one to the house that he dropped outside the numbers right side when he was kind of in stride and just lost his concentration. I think that, is also part of the offense, that it affects receivers as well. What was the play call? That's some of the times when you hear, when things go well, they'll say, oh yeah, we had that play, holstered and we just decided to dust that one off here. Well, that's the first time these guys are running that play. I think about Mike in overtime against the Raiders, was it and listen, I'm a freaking guy talking. I'm not out there with bullets flying and bodies hanging all over me trying to catch a Justin Herbert pass that's traveling at 40 miles an hour, when my body's contorted. But I think you can make a case that was a catchable ball for Mike in the end zone, and I think those are the things that we don't maybe acknowledge enough. It's all on Justin. Oh, another year for Justin, and he's more comfortable. And well, look, man, these receivers are trying to remember where they're supposed to be and where Justin's going to be looking as well. So, it's offense 202 for them as well. And I think it's, there's two sides to that pass and catch execution and that play. And, to hear Keenan talk about drops, I was really happy to hear him acknowledge that. Because like I said, I thought last year was really uncharacteristic for him. I mean, those are some of the best hands in the league. And for whatever reason, it just got away from him last year. And I'm anxious to see if that was a big part of it, that it was a new offense and maybe just thinking, what do they always say? You're supposed to think in practice and just play when the game arrives, and I think maybe there wasn't enough just playing and there was a little bit too much thinking and that could have led to some of those issues last year.
And despite all those issues, they're still like a top 5 offense. That's what's crazy is that if you,
but you know what, Chris, I think that's where stats get you in trouble, right? Because you're a top 5 offense, but you've got to make the play and there's a drop. Or you got to make a play and maybe your quarterback's like, a couple drops out there earlier in this game. I'm going to go over here instead. Like that's the difference. Like stats are great, but 9 and 8's not. You know what I mean? And I think those are the plays that
110%.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing where, I've seen Justin's numbers get thrown around and, the best of all quarterbacks in his first 2 years and all these crazy things, what Joey and Khalil have done in the past. And these stats, the only stat that matters is if you get into the postseason, right? If you get 10, 11 wins, right? And I think everybody recognizes that. I don't care if Justin has a year that's down compared to last year numbers wise, so long as Isaiah Spiller and Austin Eckler get theirs and the team wins 11 games or 12 games, you know what I mean?
100%.
But you're right. It's I remember when Justin first got thrust into action and then Keenan was his guy. Keenan was his guy all of his rookie year. And Keenan continued to be his guy last year, but then you saw Mike really become more the focus towards the back half of the year. And Mike talked about Joshua Palmer. He had a quote who said he's a lot more calm. He knows this now. He knows the offense. He knows every spot to be in. He's playing a lot more smooth. He puts in the extra work with us. So that's another guy too that I think Justin became comfortable with towards the end of last year. Lombardi talked about the tight ends, how he feels good about Gerald Everett and Parham and McKitty. So you're right. I think it's just as much on the receivers in the offensive line as it is Justin when it comes to knowing where to be in all situations.
Yeah.
Lombardi also talked about the right tackle situation.
I'm going to real quick. I want to jump in there on Palmer.
Yeah, go for it.
Chris, because look, I think one of the things that's overlooked, just because I think it could be a good theme here because Keenan kind of, broke that seal for us, but is drops, right? And look, Mike had 7 last year. That's a lot, Jared, but the big one was Jared Cook. Jared Cook had a lot of drops, a lot of big drops. And when you're talking about target versus reception percentage versus drop percentage, look, Keenan Allen had 161 targets and 110 receptions and 10 drops. Okay. Mike had 132 targets, 80 receptions and 7 drops. It's a lot, but that's a lot of volume. Now you go to Jared Cook and you see 85 targets, 53 receptions and 7 drops. That's an incredible amount of drops. And
that's a high clip.
That's an incredible amount and something that you hope is cleaned up with Gerald Everett, and Donald Parham only had one. Now, look, he only had 30 targets, 22 receptions, but, Josh Palmer now as a rookie, now you're talking, and how about this ratio? 46 targets. No, this for Palmer.
Oh, Palmer.
46 targets, 33 receptions, 1 drop. That's a nice clip. That is a nice clip for a rookie. And look, a lot of it's route. What's the route? Is it a smoke route? Is it a quick slant? But I feel like Josh Palmer was out there kind of running the whole route tree. He had some deep catches. He had some contested catches. We think about the 4th down catch and how incredible that was in a high pressure situation. So, drops are important. When as accurate as Herbert is, as exceptional as he is under pressure, when he's delivering the ball, guys got to catch it. And so that's one of the things I'm excited about, and I think was overlooked about Josh and how reliable, and how important that is. Guyton had 4 drops, so like.
Do you have Eckler's up there? Because
I do, yeah.
Usually doesn't drop anything.
And he had 5, and typically, Eckler's routes are running back routes, Now he is plenty talented enough where he's running some wheels and he's getting down the field on a handful of these. But yeah, 5 drops is a lot for a running back. But I think I just think that speaks to, how they feel about Josh and why they didn't feel the need to have to invest high draft capital or a lot of money in free agency on that 3rd wide receiver. Herbert's going to deliver it to the open man. He does not care. I just mentioned it, 4th and 21, who gets the pass? Josh Palmer. It's like, I think about, what was it? The Cleveland game. I think that he threw it to Guyton on the 4th down where he got the pass interference. He doesn't care. He will.
That was to Mike down the field, I think.
That was to Mike down the field. I thought, yeah.
So.
There was one, though, that he threw to Guyton. I remember that. It was like a high pressure 4th down. Maybe it was in the Raider game, whatever it was. But, he doesn't care.
Doesn't care who it is.
It doesn't care who it is, and I think that's why drops are just so important. And I think that's something, and I'm not saying, hey, wide receivers, clean it up. What I'm saying is it's their 2nd year in the offense too. And they can think a lot less about where they're supposed to be and what the play is and just go out and play, catch the ball and freaking score touchdowns.
You know what would be a good offseason project? Maybe I'll do this like in the dog days in July, is we look at those drops and we see what are those drops on 3rd down look like, or drops that would have been 1st downs,
yeah,
or drops that would have been touchdowns, drops that would have extended drives.
Yeah.
Because, if there's a ton of them.
Yeah. Like Jared, I can tell you right now, Chris, Jared Cook had 1 on 3rd down. Keenan had a few big ones. He had a big one against the Raiders that would have gone for a big gain on a 2nd and 3. He had 1, 2, 3, 4 on 3rd down. Big. Yeah, big. The one against the Patriots was a big one. They were trailing by a touchdown. It's in the 4th quarter. It's 24-17. And man, he might have taken that thing to the house. He was running a crosser and he's outside the numbers and the safety's way deep middle of the field. And he would have turned it for a big gain. And it was just a flat drop. So those are, and again, I'm not trying to at the point. I'm just saying that's like,
listen, this is a good exercise because this is the difference between winning the division and going 9-8.
Right.
These are the little things that are going to have to get cleaned up if the Chargers want to go where they want to go. And I think the fact that Keenan brought up 3rd downs too, in addition to drops. So I think some of that goes hand in hand though.
Yeah. I mean, I'm watching Jalen's right now. He, of his 4, 2 of them were in the 4th quarter against the Raiders on 3rd down, and they're, right to him. Yeah. And it's just, it's a 3rd and 10 and it's a 3rd and 9 and they're trailing 29-22. Now, granted, we remember what those drives were. They were freaking complete mayhem. So I'm not saying that it's like easy to catch these balls, but they're catchable balls. So there you go.
Well, there's so much for that offseason project. We did it in 3 minutes.
Hey, shout out to PFF Ultimate, where I can just kind of pull up drops and quick video and I can watch the plays. It's such a huge advantage to have, to be able to pull that up and to watch, contested catches, drop passes, yards after catch. And it's fun to watch. It is. I mean, it's the thing about the Chargers, man. It's 9-8 wasn't fun, but there's a lot of eye candy from last season, man. It's a lot of fun to watch this offense operate in some of these incredible catch. Look, 10 drops, and 110 receptions. I mean, Keenan caught the ball 110 times. So, we're kind of pointing out, we're picking nits at some point.
Yeah, Keenan has earned the right to have a few drops in his career, and I know he'll bounce back from it.
But he pointed it out. That's why I brought it up. He's the guy that brought it up, and said, look, we got to clean up the drops, and that'll help. Second year in offense will help.
Right tackle, Storm and Trey. It looks like those are the two guys competing right now for that right tackle spot. And Lombardi said he just expects flat out better play from that position in year two. And whether that's Trey or Storm, I don't know. I can't really get a great read on it, but I think July will obviously give us a better idea of what that's going to look like.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Coach Lombardi talking about, they brought in a new O-line coach because Frank got hired by the Dolphins. So Brandon Nugent comes in, whom he worked with in New Orleans for all those years. I think if you were going to tab a team that has had the best offensive line play over the last decade, it's the Saints.
Yeah.
They have drafted, they have developed, they make Pro Bowlers. Teron Armstead is obviously gone. They drafted Penning in the first round to replace him. But, they found Armstead in the third round out of Arkansas Pine Bluff and made him into one of the best left tackles in the league. They invested a 1 in Andrus Peat, a 2 in Eric McCoy, a 1 in Cesar Ruiz, moving him from center to guard, a 1 in Ryan Ramczyk. So, it's one of the good things is Lombardi knows what good offensive line play looks like and how it comes together. And he made an interesting point. He said, and I had never heard this, but he had said, right tackle is the one spot on the offensive line that you can really take a jump. That with good coaching, that is a position where he's seen guys take big jumps from year to year. And maybe that's, why we're still talking about Trey Pipkins and Storm Norton, because they just feel like there was enough there that they can help those guys. But you're right, because everybody's saying the same thing, But, last week, what were we talking about? Last week, we were talking to Popper brought it up. He's like, for a while it was, oh no, we're not messing with that left side of the line. And then last week, Brandon Staley's like, we got a lot of flexibility there and you can always kick Matt out to the right. And I know at the moment we're taping this, I forgot to, I want to look it up right now because I know O'Day tweeted out 20 hours ago, what up LA? So
okay.
a lot of people with the eyeballs on the what up LA, like, hey, wait a minute, what's that supposed to mean?
Yeah,
so,
are you going to Thousand Oaks? You coming back to the OC?
Exactly, because I think look, if you talk about Ibushi coming back, if he's completely healthy, and now you can again put Zion at his spot where he played his entire college career. He moved all over the place, but he was a left guard. Put Zion next to Slater, between Slater and Lindsey, Ibushi there at right guard, and Filer at right tackle. And hey, now, you're feeling pretty good. Yeah. So
plus it's more, we talked about the competition with cornerbacks. It's more competition in the offensive line room too, with Hymas and some of these young guys that they brought in.
Yeah.
If you do bring Ibushi back, that could be something that just another guy in that room to compete and elevate the play of guys like Storm and Trey.
Well, I think that's where we're at right now in free agency. These are veteran minimum deals, or, you're bidding against maybe another team, but they're deals. I'm not trying to point out their low money deals. They're deals that can fit under the cap, even with a new Derwin deal, or however they're, the cap is easy to manage. I'm sure Ed doesn't like hearing me say that, but you can redo deals. You can do signing bonus from salary. You can always make room. And I am completely convinced that they are going to get a Derwin deal done, before July, and that's going to be settled, and they'll figure things out. So, what I'm bringing up is why I bring it up is because O'Day, I think, is one of those where, yeah, you can fit him in under the cap. He's someone you're familiar with, someone who excelled in your scheme, in your system, and why not? Even if he's not ready for a few weeks, why not get him on the roster, because he can perform in your offense and has excelled in your offense.
Yeah, dude has something to prove too, man. I mean, he's been rehabbing and getting after it. I know in the offseason and wherever he lands, I know that's a big year, man. When you put all that work in, you want to make sure you're in tip-top shape and you're performing at your best. So it's good to have hungry guys in a room like that.
I'm going to quote tweet that right now and put some lightning bolt emojis because I'm a middle-aged man that's behaving like a child right now. So let me just
It's all about the emojis. Oh, by the way, if we're talking about social media, I saw the thing you put on your Instagram story of the dramatic girl with the toys.
That's great.
I was dying.
It's not a learned behavior. Who knew?
No.
It was genetic.
It was genetic.
Right?
Looked like an NBA playoff game.
Exactly.
Hey, right. One more thing with the line. Lombardi said that in many ways, we all know Frank Smith did a great job last year and is in Miami now, but Nugent was most recently with Lombardi and said it's almost been more seamless with Nugent because he knows exactly how I want to operate too. So I don't think there'll be much of a learning curve or much of a change in that offensive line room. I think that having that continuity, like you said, New Orleans has had some of the best O-line play in the NFL over the last decade. So I think that's a good thing as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, look, I think you can't argue, what Frank and Sean did. They were exceptional. The offensive line was great last year, especially considering Bulaga goes down in the first game and Ibushi goes down midway through the season. And instead of having Ibushi and Bulaga, you're, now operating with Schofield and Storm Norton, and your offense, still is a top 5 offense in the league. Herbert puts up 5,000 yards, 35 touchdowns. Like, that's a testament to them. So I don't want to minimize, what losing Frank means, but I think having, Sean stick around and bringing in someone that is, like you said, familiar with Coach Lombardi's scheme, you hope it's as seamless as possible. But man, I just think about it, Chris. I think about what it looked like in 17, 18, 19, 20. That offensive line. Whew, I mean, we were sweating bullets there on quite a few of those snaps. So to have what the Chargers have now, it is they flipped the script in one season, and it's so impressive because it is one of the most important position groups, and it's one of the hardest to get right.
Ironically, the one thing I think about is, Justin's rookie year where he was kind of running for his life. The one play that always sticks in my mind is at the Superdome, I think early in the game, where he rolls right, running for his life, finds Keenan in the end zone. And that was kind of a microcosm of some of the pressure that he had to endure that year. To see how this offensive line has been remade, and a lot of positive reports from Zion Johnson too. Again, this is all stuff that you're going to hear right now, but I have no doubt that Zion Johnson is going to be a nice plug and play piece. And Rashawn Slater said his rookie tape made him cringe, and he was a first team All-Pro. It's a pretty funny statement. And like you said, Filer can move around. Lindsley's kind of the general of that offensive line, and there's a lot of young guys there too. So I think a lot to be encouraged there across the line.
Yeah, and I think also Lombardi pointed out, because we're constantly talking about Gerald Everett and run after the catch and athleticism. And he's like, look, I think he's a full service tight end. I think he can block. So, I think there's an expectation that, hey, look, our tight end's going to, if that's the case, if it plays out where it's Storm or it's Trey and maybe they, need a little bit of help, we got it. We can put Gerald there and he can help block, but he's also a threat to chip and get out in the route, and the defense is going to have to think about that, and you hope to put them on their heels, with that kind of stressor. So, McKitty, we're hoping can take that next step into the.
I'm excited. You mentioned him a week or two ago. I'm excited about him developing too. I just think that's another guy who came on late last year and showed what he can do in as a blocker, but he's got juice as a pass catch. You mentioned just the fact that in that Kirby Smart offense, he didn't really have to do much of that. I think that's in his bag.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. It's, you're projecting, and what do we do here? We project, the ceiling for everyone. And unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way. But look, McKitty's a really like think about Trey McKitty is like, we're fortunate where we get to walk on the field, and there's some players that you stand next to and you're just like, damn. You recognize that's what a professional football player looks like, and McKitty's one of those. Like, McKitty is, when you stand next to him, you're like, that's a big dude, man. That is a big dude that can move. Big, strong guy, because that can move. When you can combine that, we know how hard it is to find a true Y. at that position. It's hard, and that's why guys like Kittle are so valued, because there's not a lot that can do it. And Gronk, especially, it's why he's in the conversation as the greatest tight end of all time, because of how good he was as a blocker and how incredible he was as a receiver. They just don't come along very often. So hopefully, the receiving part can develop for Trey.
Marty, that's all I got today, man. I just wanted to let Chargers fans know, listen, everybody has hope this time of year, but I think that the things that you're seeing, not necessarily on the grass, but just the culture that's being built, actually seeing these guys together now, it's like a nice little appetizer before it gets real at Jack Hammett Sports Complex, late July, and you can
Cowboys
get out
and Cowboys and Rams. We got Cowboys and Rams this year, joint practices. Looking forward. And you know what? I'll leave you with this. If you're not familiar, team photographer, our dear friend Ty Knoll, he's got a great photo that he posted yesterday of Bosa and Mack.
I'm glad you mentioned it. Follow Ty.
Such a great photo.
It's amazing. I think his caption was just like, whatever you thought it looked like, that's what it is.
I think it just says, "Oh, indeed. Oh, indeed." It's just those two dudes kneeling next to each other, and you're like, yeah, that's reality. Like somehow these two guys are on the same team. And, I thought Pop did a good job last week. If you missed that episode of the pod, what did he have? I think he said he had 6 sacks in 7 games. So, he was dealing with a serious foot injury, and you hope he's over that. But even though he was hurt last year, and Khalil had mentioned that after the injury, after he had the season ending surgery, he's like, look, I've been playing hurt all year. So guy was playing hurt all year. He still had 6 sacks in 7 games. So there's that. So you string that out and you project it, and you're talking about a 13, 14 sack season for Khalil Mack on the Bears, let alone on a team opposite Joey Bosa.
Seeing those guys like on one knee talking to each other, it's just like, I'd love to be a fly on the wall. And that guy, the picture that Ty took. Ty now, Mike Nowak and Mackenzie Hudson. Obviously you get great pictures on Chargers.com, but follow all 3 of them on Instagram too, because you get some things that maybe not make the site, and it's cool to see that, especially getting you through the summer as we get closer to training camp.
Exactly.
All right,
exactly.
Money. All right, we're off next week. Mini camp is in 2 weeks, so we'll have a little recap of mini camp.
When's mini camp start?
Mini camp is I think it's the Tuesday and Wednesday of.
So like the 14th or something.
Yeah, hold on.
Perfect.
Let me 14th and 15th. So today's the 2nd. We'll be back on the 16th. We'll recap mini camp, and we'll be with you throughout the summer. I have to get another offseason project now that we cleaned up the drops thing. In 3 minutes.
Do it. Make it official. Mine was just the quick look over there at the quick video from PFF Ultimate. The show that comes to you on the 24th will be live from Hawaii. So I'll give you some eye candy. We'll do I have no problem carving out a half hour or 40 minutes from the shores of Waikiki. Maybe I'll find a Ziploc bag and just do it from the wave out there, or something at Kaiser's.
We'll do a Hawaii home and home. I'm going to Hawaii for a few days in July.
There we go.
And I think I'll be there. So where are you going?
Going to Waikiki. Going to Oahu.
Waikiki.
Yeah, going to Oahu for 6 days. Had to cut it off last year. Had it all planned. Had it ready to go. And training camp. NFL Network did the all 32 teams starting training camp on that Saturday, and they were like, "Hey, you got to be here." And I was like, "All right, I guess I'll fly back from Hawaii, do the one day." And they're like, "Yeah, and then we need you at the Cowboys on Monday, and then we need you at the Chargers on Tuesday." I'm like, "Okay, so much for Hawaii." So this year, I managed to push it up into June just after mini camp, so I can squeeze in a cool.
We can give you a vacation day, buddy. You don't have to get up at 6 a.m.
You know what? I'll let the folks get their eyeballs on it. No problem. No problem at all. Do it from the balcony or something.
We won't talk any football. We'll just talk about your trip, your itinerary, your plans for the day.
That's what everybody wants to hear.
All right, guys. Always appreciate you listening and watching. For Money, I'm Chris. This has been Chargers Weekly.